Welcome to Tough Lies, the Golfers Podcast with Colin McDougall and Richard Zobel.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. So good to be with you once again on Tough Lies, the Golfers Podcast with my good friend Richard Zobel. How are you, Richard?
I am very good, Colin, and how are you doing this week?
I'm very, very well. I'm going to try to do a better job of previewing what the hell we're going to talk about this week. So we are going to talk, of course, about the tour. We're going to talk about the recap. Jacob Bridgeman, interesting finish, I guess I would say.
Very interesting. Lots to talk about. We're just doing that. Yep.
Yep. And Rory had a little chance in there at the end. We always want to talk about things, interesting things related to golf. I think this is a great week to talk about golf architecture because Riviera is a course that is loved by players.
Coveted by all.
Coveted by all, exactly. So I think we're going to touch on that. Want to spend a little bit of time talking about Jon Rahm and the DP World Tour standoff.
Okay.
Mention the results from the LPGA Tour this week. And we'll do our MindTrak golf moment. I think we're going to talk a little bit about sort of handling a lead, whether you're an amateur or a pro, sort of how do you sort of deal with the emotions and so forth and the mental side of that. We got a listener question again, and then we'll wrap it up. So I think it's going to be a great show. But before we get into it, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about a really great contributor to golf in Canada, Stephen Ross. So maybe you can kick us off with a few minutes.
Sure, yeah. Stephen Ross, who was the former executive director of the Royal Canadian Golf Association for close to 20 years, which is now Golf Canada. You know, I first met Stephen back in, I think it was the 1997 Canadian Amateur Championship. And Stephen started working for the RCGA. He was committed to golf like second to none in all of Canada. You may not have agreed with him all the time, but you could never question his commitment and what he gave to Canadian golf. He suddenly passed away in Florida late last week. I talked to Lauren Rubenstein about it. It's very sad indeed. He was 72 years old, caught pneumonia, and didn't recover. But he was very instrumental in much of Golf Canada. He had growth initiatives. I mean, if it was women's golf, junior golf, he was one of the world's foremost rules of golf authorities. And he did rules at the Masters and the U.S. Open and the Open Championship. He was inducted into the Canadian Golf Hall of Fame, same year I was, 2011. And, he needs to be recognized. He was a great person for Canadian golf, and he was involved in the sale of Glen Abbey. So he had a huge role in golf, and you know what? He'll always be remembered by those who love and are part of this Canadian golf family.
Yeah, there's no question. He was a stalwart, committed member of the golf community in Canada for a very long time. And heart always in the right place. Yeah. I think you said it well. It didn't always agree with him, but there was no denying the interest and objective of improving golf in Canada. Absolutely, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I wish him wish his family well.
Condolences to his family.
Of course, through all this, condolences to his family. Moving from there, we're going to talk PGA Tour. Just the Genesis Invitational wrapped up a few moments ago. Jacob Bridgeman made it interesting, to say the least. He had a 6-shot lead going into the final round. He was playing with Rory McIlroy, and he did get it done. He wasn't pretty towards the end, but he got it done. And I just wanted to get your initial thoughts on what you saw from the Genesis Invitation.
Well, anytime you're I love watching any golf tournament at Riviera. It's one of the great golf courses it's bumping up to that or over that 100-year mark, and watching it. It's awkward to play. I love playing it every year at the LA Open. I never played it well, but it was always something very attractive, and it was fun to watch Jacob Bridgeman play on Saturday. He cruised through it beautifully, and there wasn't a shot he wasn't able to hit. He was completely contained. Now, keep in mind, he's a guy that's kind of built up through the ranks. He has not won on the PGA Tour, so he's trying to get to this kind of, open that door and walk through that door of becoming a winner. And yesterday on Saturday, the third round, he shot 64, and it was an absolute cakewalk for him. It was the easiest 64, and he spoke openly about it. But he has to play the final round, and this is what I call walking the gauntlet. You have to, when you walk the gauntlet, it means going into the final round. You're in the last few groups, either the last group or second last, third last, but all the people that have a chance to win are in the position called walking the gauntlet. And the idea to walk the gauntlet successfully is to play better than anyone else, not only in your group, but around you. So he was handling that wonderfully on Saturday, but now he's playing in the final, walking the gauntlet with Rory McIlroy. And he's got a 6-shot lead. He soon gets it to a 7-shot lead within the first few holes. And then he makes the turn. I think he's got a 4-shot lead. And it was fascinating to watch him play. His routine, and we'll get into this MindTrak moment about his routine, because it was the thing that caused him and allowed him to win. But on that golf course, on that day, in that situation, it's very difficult. And Rory was standing around hoping, and if Rory or Kitsuyama or anyone was going to have a chance, Jacob Bridgeman had to help him. He had to back up a bit. So his 72 on the last day, he got it done. We can get into more detail about that shortly with those questions. But, he walked the gauntlet and successfully and got through his baptismal of fire. And it was extremely impressive for him to do it, particularly on that last 3-foot putt.
Yeah. I mean, man, my observation, I think my observation would be the crowd was very interested in seeing a playoff.
Yes.
And especially when Rory rolled that slider in from whatever, it's 20 feet or 25 feet from above the hole. And I think that sort of momentarily sort of put Bridgman on edge, because all of a sudden it's kind of like it's a bit more real. I think he's got to get it done, and he just sort of didn't want to flood it past the hole downhill, but he got it done, and good for him. One thing that was coming to my mind as I was watching that I wanted to bring up with you was the idea of being in the lead, a significant lead, or being a chaser. I think there's a natural inclination to sort of feel like it's more uncomfortable, if anything, to be in the lead. Like when you're behind by a couple, you've got nothing but sort of I can put the gas pedal on and try to make something happen and put my skills to work. What have I got to lose, sort of thing. Whereas when you're in the lead, it sort of seems like there's nowhere to go but down. And I was very curious watching all that unfold. What is it that causes players at that high a level to, want to be the leader or want to, or sort of fall? Let me say this again. What is it about players that cause them to become uncomfortable towards the end when they've got a significant lead like that?
The answer is it depends. And literally, like when I was coming up on the PGA Tour and I first saw my name on the leaderboard, it caused me to be it got me too excited. And when you get excited, you have a harder time with your routine. You have a harder time. You get a little anxious, and you typically make some mistakes. So it depends. Like a guy like Chris Gotterup, we talked about him, that he automatically felt comfortable with playing with Rory McIlroy in the final round of the Scottish Open. So, he's got a lot of courage. Some people, to me, I had to learn how to do that. The first few times I saw myself in the lead, I was nervous and I didn't handle it very well at all. But when I started, the more I got into that position, the more comfortable it was. Took me about, I think, in the position of walking the gauntlet, I think it was about 4 or 5 times when I was comfortable enough to look at the leaderboard to find out where I was and not get too excited. So that's experience. So if you develop, if you're a natural like Gotterup and you get in there and you have the courage to do that, good on you. But to me, and most people, I think you have to learn to handle that situation like you do every other situation. Now, when you're, have the experience of being like a Rory McIlroy, you want to be in that position. You covet it. You want it when you lead. You're not comfortable unless you're in the lead. So it depends on how you are in your. So I needed to learn how to acquire that skill and feeling comfortable. I needed to see my name there a few times before I felt like I belonged. And that's just a natural. And you won't know it until you get there. And looking at Jacob Bridgeman, Saturday he was impeccable. Today he was rock solid, and his commitment and his execution of his shot routine, that's the different factor, because he did say, I don't know if you noticed, that bad shot that he made on the 16th hole that went into the bunker, and he had to hit it like 30 feet away from the pin, and he had that 5-foot putt for bogey. That was a tough situation. He went through his routine perfectly, nailed the putt, and and that was where Rory was watching very intently to see how he was going to handle that situation. And then what he said when he faced that 5-foot putt on 16, he went numb. His hands were numb, and it was kind of surreal for him, because that's what pressure does. But it was his ability to get through his routine that allowed him to execute those good shots and get in before he to win by one.
I did a little background search on Bridgeman before we jumped on, and what came through is that he's always been a truly excellent putter, and the rest of his game is catching up. And if that's the case, then I think we'll see lots more, because putting is often the thing that's the make or break. And if you're a hell of a putter, the other stuff, I think, if that starts to get up to tour level or above, then he's got a real shot at.
Well, and he was remarkable again. Those greens, those Poana greens, it put the fear of God in all the players. I mean, they were extremely fast and very bumpy. You watch the golf ball when they have those worm cams in there, and it's jumping around, bobbing and plinkoing down there, and it looks like it's in, and then it veers off line. And halfway there, and there's nothing you can do about it. So you're going to get a little tentative, meaning you're not going to hit it as hard. And so the more tentative you are, it doesn't hold the pace. But when you look at Jacob Bridgman's, how he strikes the ball, he hits everything with authority. And he's in with those strong and proper contact. The ball's going to stay on its line a lot more than wobble. If you're lagging it down there, it's going to bobble and weave, and you're going to get very anxious over those putts. And everyone in the field was anxious over those putts. Everyone was missing the putts except for Jacob Bridgeman today.
Yeah. And there was that South African guy. His name was
Potgieter.
Aldrich
Potgieter.
Yeah. So I couldn't resist. I saw that name. I was like, that just is I'm sorry, but that's a funny name. I was trying to think, so I was thinking, well, we're what comes to mind when I hear Aldrich Potgieter, and
Potgieter.
Potgieter. Yeah. I was like, I think he's if you've seen Raiders Lost Ark, when the at the end of the movie, the Nazi guy, his face melts. I feel like that character's name might have been Aldrich Potgieter.
Good player. Yeah. He's a very good player.
Oh yeah, for sure he is.
And yesterday, when he had a good round, he was doing the interview with Balionis, and he changed. Apparently, he had changed clubs. He changed equipment. He changed agents. He changed physiotherapist. He did a big change, just changed everybody going into it. So obviously, the pattern of South Africans that come over and play are always good. I mean, a cultural thing about South Africans, and I've always thought this. They in their culture, they have a lot of courage. And they it's perfect for golf and dealing with the adversity with golf. So whether it's Ernie Els to Gary Player to David Frost to Potgieter, these guys, they're typically good players, and it's interesting to watch that pattern.
Yeah, well, kidding aside, he's a hell of a player. I think he's one of those that that will be
Mm-hmm.
a top player, top South African for years to come. I can't help it. I find his name funny. What do you want? So pivot from there. I want to spend. I think it's worth spending a minute or two just on our friend Jon Rahm. And there's some recent news. Effectively, my read of it was the DP World Tour sort of somewhat similarly granted a route back for the players that were on the tour that went to live. Sort of, they had a bunch of fines that they were issued because they went to play on live, and it was kind of a stalemate. And basically, an olive branch from the DP World Tour was extended to all the players, including Jon Rahm. All of the players, including Tyrrell Hatton, accepted the offer. Jon Rahm did not. And I thought that was very interesting because it has serious Ryder Cup implications. If he does not regain his status with the DP World Tour and remains on live, I think he's in jeopardy the way the rules are currently constituted. I mean, who knows? It may be made up, but or fixed between now and the next Ryder Cup. But it certainly seems like Jon Rahm, reading between the lines, is very, I'm going to say, pissed with the DP World Tour and the way he's been treated.
Sounds like he's digging in his heels.
Yeah.
The little I know about it, I'm trying to understand the framework about it and why they're doing it. So the way I see it is they're allowing all the previous DP World members a path back if they just pay the fines accordingly to, like, they didn't ask for release. They need to be released. So they need the approval of the DP World Tour to play in conflicting events. It's the conflicting event rule. And they said, hell with it. And I guess they didn't give up their membership, and so they're being fined with every violation they played and didn't get a release. And it comes up to X. And I'm, for whatever reason, Jon Rahm, if I'm reading it properly, Jon Rahm said he's not going to do that. And so I guess he won't take the path to go back and risk, with now that it has, official golf world ranking points, that he could collect those points in the major championships that he plays in, and then and also on the live tour, and find a way back to play the Ryder Cup. But so I guess he didn't receive it as a olive branch, and he said, you can put this where the sun don't shine.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, I think there's some of that. I was thinking, when it comes to Jon Rahm, I think that's probably a fair assessment. He's like, I'll just do well enough in the majors that I'll be qualified for the Ryder Cup, or they're going to come begging for me to play, or one caveat to the olive branch that was extended was that there was going to be the requirement for those players to play in some volume of DP events.
Yes, that's right.
And maybe that is a sticking point. Or, my thought was, well, maybe he just wants to avoid Patrick Reed at all costs. It's like, if he's going over there, I'm staying here. I fucking hate that guy.
Well,
I don't know.
I guess what they've got to do, they've got to have some, forum to get these players back in good standings. And so that seems natural. So if you've breached it, and you can breach any contract you choose, and that's on you. And if you want to play, get paid and accept that money, good on you. But there are consequences with it. So I think in order to get back in good standings, this is how the DP World had framed out a path, and we'll see how it's going to unfold.
Yeah, you don't want to. Ultimately, I think you don't want to get stubbornness to get in the way of necessarily, finding a way back for those players to play in those events, right? Because you can be proud of and say, well, you're never coming back, but those people help sell tickets and help the tour, and so you're a business at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not sure, he's got 2 years on it. He was the last one to really go over to live, so he probably has a couple more years on his contract.
Yeah.
And perhaps if he had one more year, he'd sit it out and kind of go the route that the other four guys were.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the
So,
three guys.
quick recap. I should mention too. Gino Thickall from Thailand wins the Honda LPGA in Thailand. Brooke Henderson, that she won with 24 under.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit akin to Brooke winning in Canada. Home player wins in their home country, which is nice to see. I looked up the stats and I just thought it was interesting. If Brooke putted the same number of putts, she would have been one off winning.
Mm-hmm.
There was a huge gap, 13 shots worse on the greens than the winner, and that makes it tough to compete when you're giving up 3 point something shots around to somebody on the greens. It's going to be awfully tough to sort of be up there at the end.
Putting, that old term that you drive for show and putt for dough. Well, yeah, it's true. You better putt. You better
There's
putt.
a reason for it. Yeah,
I know through the past technology, they threw that one out the window, but you're not going to be able to win a golf tournament if you're not putting well. You need to, or if you're going to not be the best putter in the world, you have to be good enough, like Colin Morikawa, and then just beat them to death with your good ball striking. Now Brooke can do that. She is seriously talented, and again, every time I look at Brooke recently, I just wonder to myself. I scratch my head a little bit, kind of going, okay, does she really? She seems on the shy side. Now that her sister's getting married, and there's going to be this. I guess, shift in life, how long is she going to want it? Is she hungry? And I think that's a big aspect. To me, she doesn't look hungry, perhaps like she did when she was, 16 or 17. She was really, really good. I get that impression, and I don't know if that's the case or not, but I just see here, she should be dominating out on the LPGA. I think she's good enough to do that, and she should be back as the LPGA Tour, poster gal.
Yeah, I agree. I think I agree that I don't know similar to you, but I get that vibe, the same sort of vibe, and it may be helpful to get some further context because there are some people who are just passive in terms of their demeanor, but burn inside to win. And we don't know. There could be all kinds of things behind the scenes.
Today's episode of Tough Lies is brought to you by Fairway Foresight, the AI-powered digital caddy, yardage, and strategy app for golfers who want to stop making the same mistake every single round. Fairway Foresight doesn't just give you a number, it analyzes your patterns, your shot tendencies, their dispersion, and decision making. And then it shows you what you should do, not what you wish would happen. If you ever thought, I probably shouldn't hit driver here, and hey, who hasn't? But I'm going to hit driver anyways, this app is the one for you.
For this week's sort of deeper dive segment, I wanted to talk about golf course architecture. You and I know, could spend a lot of time talking about the subject area.
Right.
But the lens I want to look at, Riviera is clearly seen by players as one of the greats. And I think there are some interesting things to sort of understand about it. But I want to talk about the broader context as to sort of what, I think this will be the first of many conversations we have about golf course architecture. And I want to talk about today is sort of from your perspective, what constitutes a good design, and what should people maybe be looking for in good designs. I think a lot of people sort of they like a course for certain reasons, but they don't know what makes for a good golf course. So you have some lived experience in all of this space, and I was very curious to sort of hear your point of view on Riviera and golf course design in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Riviera, it's one of those remarkable golf clubs, and through history in the past 100 years, it's really gotten better and better. George Thomas, the architect, he came out here. He came to LA and built 3 wonderful golf courses: Bel Air, Riviera, and LA Country Club that had the U.S. Open LA North a few years ago. And they're all kind of have the characteristics of George Thomas. I mean, and what that is it's a high level of playability. Now, one of the things that I love so much is the bunkering. And I remember back in, I think it was 1993, Tom McBroom and I got together. I was in the process of co-designing a tower ranch for him with him in Kelowna at the time. It was an Intrawest project, and we said, I was down at the LA Open. I said, come on out on the Monday and let's go out there. You and I walk the golf course without any golf clubs, so just walk it and look at it, not from a player's perspective, but from an architectural perspective. Let's look at the fairways. Let's look at the bunkers. Let's look at the greens. And what really stood out in my mind was the bunkering. And now the bunkering too. Bunkering evolves over the 100 years because of the sandblasting, and these lips get big and they grow high. So when you see Rory McIlroy crawling into the bunker at Riviera, and it's like he's only he's got another 10 feet before he can get out of it, and they have these dark lips and the faces go straight up. And then there's about a 2-foot gap of where you see topsoil, dirt. It's a black line. Then you see another foot, and if not more, of the kikuyu grass that's thatched in. So the lip is about 2 feet high. So when you're standing back in the fairway and you see these bunker lips in relation to the hole, it gives you depth perception because, and particularly that black line of soil that you see underneath at the bottom layer of the lip, that to me is like mascara or eyeliner under a beautiful woman's eye, because it stands out and you're able to pick up depth, and it's talking to you when you're standing on the fairway looking at these lips. And that really stands out at Riviera, and these deep, big, massive bunkers that cut in close, very similar to Royal Melbourne, where the bunkers lips go up, right up to the edge. Now, what I don't like about Riviera is the grass they use. This kikuyu grass. It's a South African grass. It's like Velcro, and that's why you saw Rory's bounce day on the 10th hole when he drove it into the tree on that drivable par 4. And he hit one bounce, and it hits right in there, and that's where the Velcro aspect of it. So it's hard to play the chip or bounce and run. If you hit it on the surface, it'll bounce on the surface and be fine. But it's a grass that I think they should get rid of. Bring in fescue grass for the fairways and play it that way. But Riviera is one of the greatest golf courses, and I love to play it every year. And they have, they have the most coveted drivable par 3, the 10th hole. That is key, and it's modeled. At Sagebrush, the 13th hole. Drivable par 4. Thank you for that. We when we were building Sagebrush, we wanted the 13th hole to be like Riviera's number 10, where you have an opening on the left. But if you hit in the opening on the left and you don't hit a good shot, you're flirting with trouble, like the trees Rory was in today, and so forth. And then if you hit it, you hold that line with the close to the trouble, and you can run it on the green. Now the green is so thin at the 10th hole at Riviera. It's a wonderful hole. You got to pull out driver. You got to hit it. And then also on the 4th hole this past year, they did some renovating it. They made it longer, it was like a 240-yard par 3, and they brought it up to 265 yards now. And so, but back then they had to fix the green. There was so much slope on it that you get everything kind of running this way, and the ball would run off the green. 2004, I think they had 15%. Yeah, 15% of the players hit the green at 244 yards, and it's 267 yards, and 80% of the guys hit the greens this year. So playability factors and the slopes of the greens are the 6th hole got a bunker in the middle of the green. And we watched Rory take sand wedge on the green today and spin it. It was a pretty interesting shot. Excuse me. Riviera is a wonderful model to watch.
And so high level, we're not going to be able to get, we can literally talk for days about golf course architecture, but high level for our listeners, I'm curious, when you think about winning golf course designs, what are maybe the adjectives, the descriptors you would use that sort of come to mind that indicate the course is really a winning design?
It's called, the first thing and foremost, playability. It has to have
Okay.
great playability. So let's go from one extreme to the other. So let's start out with TPC Sawgrass, Island Green. I mean, 17th hole, just it's in my mind, it's a despicable architecture hole. Does it create drama? Of course it does. Is it perfect for the Players' Championship? Absolutely. But great architecture? I think not. So basically what happens is, when a architect forces you to play one-dimensional golf in the air, then he is torturing the golfer, because not many, the amateur can't play the golf in the air very well. But if it gives you an option to play other ways around it, like running up on a redan side and running the ball up, then the playability increases. So if you're an 18 handicap and you have to carry water all day long, the playability for that player is not going to be good. It's the playability for testing the best players in the world. Well, that needs to take place because it makes for more drama and sells TV for the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
So playability is one. Maintenance is always, how good the greens are. Everybody remembers great greens, and you can have a great design and poor maintenance, and everyone's going, what a crappy golf course that is. So maintenance, playability, and also too is when you have these harsh undulations in the greens, that proves to make it very difficult. Difficult does not mean good in golf course architecture. We went through the 80s full of Pete Dye courses and Jones courses that were very hard, but they were very difficult. But that doesn't mean they're. So when you come and play a Ben Crenshaw and a Bill Coore golf course, you will get a combination of playability and that gives you options to play, and it's in great shape, and they have these beautiful bunker lines so you can get the depth of the shot into the green, or how the hole was supposed to be played, or one of the many different options to play the hole. That's the difference. That's what great architecture is: playability and great maintenance.
Yeah. For me, I think in tandem with playability, like the word that comes to my mind, I don't know the top anyways, is creativity. I like golf courses where, as you said, there's more than one shot to play.
Right.
There's more than one way to play a hole and still perform well. And I love holes that sort of give you the opportunity to be aggressive, but with penalty. If you don't perform.
Yep.
And but similarly, if you want to play it safe, there's the opportunity to play it safe, but it also makes for a more difficult or challenging second or third.
What's a good example of that? And I'm sure many of our readers have played the old course. You got OB on the right side almost on every hole, because you're hugging around, you're going around the circle, and if you want to play safe, just to your point, that if you want to bite off and play a little more risky, you can play down that right side. But if you're playing, the more conservative you play on your tee shots, everything to the left, then you're going to have a hard second shot coming in. So you can make it easy on yourself or tough on yourself, and you get to choose how much you want to bite off. But if you could place your ball 5 yards from the OB on the right side on every hole that there's OB on the right side at the old course, you're going to have this absolute perfect runway right to the pin without any obstruction from the bunkers over there, and it's an easy golf course. But do you have the courage to be able to hit it 5 yards left of the OB on every hole on the right? Not many people do, but when you have to, that's what you have to do if you want to play an easy old course. So to me, Mother Nature designed the old course, and sheep made the bunkers, trying to hunker down underneath the wind. So Mother Nature was the architect of the old course.
I hadn't planned to tell this story this week, but you brought up the old course. I can't resist. I'll tell it quickly, but basically, I was very lucky to go and play in Scotland. This is years ago now, and had a friend who had membership in the RNA, so we went and had lunch in the RNA, which for those who don't know is like right behind the first tee of the old course.
Yep.
And so you go in there with a suit on, and
you have to have a tie on, don't you?
You have to have a tie on. It's all very jacket and tie, very formal. And so we sat there. We had a tea time, and because it's extended daylight there at that time of year, we were teeing off at like 4:00. So we sat and had lunch, and we had some wine. Mm-hmm. And we had some more wine, and then we had some more wine, and we're just watching. We're in the RNA. We're just watching people tee off on what is undoubtedly got to be the widest fairway on planet Earth.
Absolutely,
I mean, it is. It's 3 football fields wide, and so as we're having a few drinks, we're watching it's. The nerves got like, is any of us going to miss the largest fairway on Earth? So we finally get to 4:00, and there is no driving range, right? You sort of just go.
Right.
And so I hit the lowest smother hook you could imagine at the moment. It's like, I'm just not going left.
Did you
so
go
I went into I went to the left. I went left of the middle, but fine. But one of my buddies, I won't name them, but one of my buddies missed the widest fairway on Earth to the right, because it just got in their head, and they're a very, very good player, but it's just
Ian Baker Finch drove it out of bounds there. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that's right.
He hit it out of bounds there. That was
same idea.
Yeah,
it happens, but you just go. But it was so much. It had just gotten in your head because you literally watch people tee off for 2.5 hours, and then you're like, I couldn't possibly screw this up, And it was really, really funny. I feel like there's an emerging trend in architecture. My general feeling is that architecture is getting better. Would you agree?
I think it's getting better by a small group that's leading this new minimalist architecture design that Ben Crenshaw and Bill Coor are doing. There's Tom Doak, there's Jim Urbina, there's Gil Hance. These are the guys, in my opinion, are doing the best work. Of my opinion, those who are conventional and choose to build USGA greens, they're very expensive. They're not doing the best work. The people who are doing the best work are Rod Whitman in Canada. He's really doing some good stuff, and I think that it's coming full circle, 180 degrees back to where. After World War II, with the advent of the bulldozer and the excavator, they moved dirt, and then they moved way too much dirt because they could. When back in those days, pre-World War II, when you're shaping a golf course with horse-drawn skidders, you're using a minimal amount of dirt. And so and the guys that are on the bulldozers and this minimalist movement are making the decisions in the dirt and on their shaping, and they don't know it until they come upon it. And then it's cost effective, and then at the end, the result, it happens to be a better end product.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good way to put it, that it seems like almost like a full circle that they're coming around to in terms of the nature of the golf course designs tying into how little can we do to the earth underneath us.
From a cost-effective basis as well, right? And
saving costs, but also just driving. That's what it should be about.
Sure, absolutely.
It seems like it's just for the decades of the 70s, 80s, 90s. Overproduced was a word that I would use. Like, it was just if you could move
overindulged,
extra. Overindulged, better word.
Overindulged, too much of this, too much, thinking too hard, trying too hard. Like literally, let's make a green an island. If you're a 26 handicap, you're going to be there all day long and needing a large bucket in order to get one ball on the green. That's not good architecture
nowadays. That's a good add up for sure. Yeah. So I know it's a subject we're going to come back to. I do like that we're sort of in alignment in terms of our view on it
Mm.
overall, and I look forward to further discussion. I should say, too, for our listeners out there, you can always subscribe to us, follow us, like us. We are on the Twitter, the X. It is at Tough Lies Pod on X. It is at Tough Lies Podcast on Instagram. Our website is toughliespodcast.transistor.fm. And please feel free to send a message, a DM if you have questions. We're adding questions each week. I've got a good one later this week. Actually happens to tie into our discussion around design. And so we're building this audience over time here, having a great time doing it. And please support us and follow us there. I do think we should circle back on the mental side of the game around what happened at the Genesis Invitational this week. And that is to say, I think there's a relatability to what Jacob Bridgeman went through in terms of he has a 6-shot lead going into the last round. He's in incredibly great form. He's just got to get it over the finish line. And I think a lot of us who play golf on the regular, at whatever level, we either go through a stretch of golf where we play extraordinarily good, just a good set of holes, or we're playing a match and we get on a roll early and we're up 5 holes on our competitor, or 3 holes, or whatever it might be. And all of a sudden, I don't want to say the word choke, but there's some degree of tension that sort of enters things.
No, we got to say
all
the
you
word
see is
choke.
failure.
We got to
I got to
say
the word choke. Okay, all right. So I want to understand from your perspective, having done this, how do you handle when things are going well and keep it going and try to avoid the negative thoughts that lead you down the road towards disaster?
Well, we got a perfect example in Jacob Bridgeman this past weekend. 64 Saturday, easiest walk in the park he's ever had on the PGA Tour. And then he goes into Sunday and he's playing with Rory McIlroy in the final group, and this situation is completely different. And he hasn't won before, so he's looking to but what he has done is he has built himself a system. When you look, the golf tournament just finished. When he got to his golf ball, he and his caddy pulled out their yardage. They're doing their pre-shot routine. They're trying to figure out the distance. They're gathering all the information, the wind, the lie, the ball, how they're feeling. What's the strategy to play this hole? Then it leads to them making a decision. And then they go into his shot routine, which is his execution of the shot. Now, let's use Rory McIlroy as an example, and Jacob Bridgeman. On the 15th hole, Rory, and I watch Rory's looks at the hole in his waggle and when he dresses the ball. On that shot, he had 11 looks at the, waggle, look, waggle, look, waggle, look. He had 11 looks at the hole. And then on the bunker shot that came short of the green, he had 5 looks at the hole before he hit his shot. Then another shot, I think a drive on, I think it was on 16, he had 6 looks per shot. So he doesn't have a shot routine that he sticks to. When you look at now Jacob Bridgeman, and particularly let's look at his putting stroke. His putting stroke is exactly the same every way. So he lines up the putt, he marks his ball, he lines up the putt, and he's looking at, he gets his read, his pre-shot routine. He makes some decision. He's going to break left to right or right to left, whatever it is, or go straight. So then while his ball is marked, he takes his address over the ball mark, he takes a practice stroke. I've never seen anyone do that, but that's what he does. Then he pulls back, puts his ball down, steps into it, takes 2 practice swings, practice strokes, 1 look, and then pow, he lets it go. And this is what he does time and time again. And like we talked in previous weeks, when you structure a specific shot routine, there's a rhythm in it that goes with your concentration that goes up, and then there's a calming drop in there that gets you into the zone. And when you get into this rhythm, It's a beautiful thing, and you need to rely on it. So when he got to the 16th hole today, and he hits it in the bunker, he plays way to the right, he hits a good putt, but it goes 5 feet by on a treacherous, he said he felt numb. He couldn't feel his hands. He was in a situation psychologically where this is surreal. He's got 3 holes to play, and he's got a 1-shot lead. So his routine, so you and I and the listeners, when we're watching him, we went, what a great putt he made there. And it was the routine that got him through it. It's something he relies on. And you need a routine with your putt, particularly your putter. You need a routine with everything you do with your drive. And he does exactly the same thing. And I'm thinking Rory doesn't do this. He doesn't do it on his driver. He's constantly looking 7, 8, 9, or 10 times with his driver. So you want to be very concise. You want it exactly, and like I said before, it's important to be as short as possible, because the longer it is, the more things can, distract you and cause you anxiousness. So the pre-shot routine and the shot routine is what got Jacob Bridgeman through the door that won him his first PGA Tour event. That's how he deals with pressure.
Yeah, and I think it's we've talked about routine a lot, but I think it's definitely something that I'm going to try even this year to be more disciplined in. I have certain aspects. I drive the ball extremely well overall, and I would swear it's because of my routine. I don't really think about it as that, but I have
you have a routine. It isn't it isn't something logically that you perhaps sequenced on a piece of paper. That's right.
But it's less so, I would say, with my other shots.
Right.
I have, I have very good control with my driver. I kind of do the same thing every time.
Right.
And just let it go.
And
with the other shots,
and you're a good driver. But when you have 5-foot putts and it's to win the $5 Nassau or the club champion or whatever, if you don't have a routine to lie on, you're gonna project forward like, oh, I need to make this putt. Don't miss it. Your mind is going to start talking like that. And then it collapses your routine. And like you notice how short he hit that putt on both 17 and 18, particularly the one on 18. Yes. He said the nerves got to him. He left that 3 feet. I think he only had 1 3-putt in the whole week. And then he left it short. That's a sign, an indication of his nerves and being nervous. And he didn't hit a good putt. So he didn't have a good execution routine on it. He got caught up in the moment. But he had to bear down and make sure that routine he nailed that 3-footer right in the middle of the hole. So those are the things that get you through those difficult times. And it doesn't matter if you're a PGA Tour player or an average golfer.
Yeah. Nice. So listener question, Ian from Alpharetta, Georgia asks, both of us, what are your favorite golf course designs and why? So maybe 1 or 2 of your favorites, and I'll give you 1 or 2 of mine. And sort of why they're your favorite.
Yeah, my favorite design would be Cypress Point. And first and foremost, you start out with a piece of land that only God could have made. And so whether it's Pebble Beach or Cypress Point or Bandon Dunes, you're starting off with a great piece of land and you don't have to move a lot of dirt. That's what those types of golf courses really make a wonderful impact. And the old courses, the courses that are over 100 years old, they're around because they've evolved. They're a living entity in the past century. And when golfers play on them over decades and decades and decades, they start to play a little differently. Trees get a little bigger, and you start kind of cutting back on what you want to keep or what you don't want to keep, and then the character of the golf course comes out. So I love golf courses that Mother Nature has already built them by the piece of land that they sit on.
Nice. Yeah. For me, I would say I have not played Cypress Point. I did play, as I mentioned in the previous episode, Pebble Beach and Spyglass.
Mm-hmm.
For me, from a design perspective, I absolutely love Spyglass.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
I just love. It's just it's tough, as you pointed out last time. But I thought the shot values on every hole were really, really high. Yeah, and it was interesting because you kind of go out towards the water, but then a lot of the remaining holes, like from
in the forest,
4 in, I think it's more or less in the forest.
It is. It's in the Monterey
in that
forest.
part of the world.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't have thought going into it. I just didn't know that much. But when I got there, I was just floored by the quality of that design.
I must say, one of my most disappointing great golf courses that's out there is Augusta National.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I know people go, how could you say that? That's sacrilegious. And I think it is. It just because to me, it's a lovely golf course, and I love playing in the Masters when I played it once. But they're changing it every year. They're changing it drastically every year. So it's kind of like, when there's too much plastic surgery being done on someone's face and it looks that way. That's what, when I look at Augusta and you go, all these, like, the lips of these bunkers, they knock them down, and it takes years and decades for lips to grow up, and it adds character, in my opinion. And when they knock them down, because that wasn't the original design when it was built. Well, you know what? Golf courses, Oakmont, when it was built, it didn't have trees on it. Period. Then it became a forest, and then about 8 years ago, they knocked every tree down because they wanted to truly get it back to its original design. So it depends. It depends with it. I love golf courses with more and more with the less trees I see on them.
Yeah. The other course I would throw out there, which I just found it funny, but it was the new course at St. Andrews, right? So they have the old course. The new course is new because it's only 300 years old instead of 350 years old, which I thought was hilarious. But it's one of those courses, like, I think because it's right next to the old course, I think it doesn't necessarily get its due, but it is a lot of fun to play.
It's a great golf course. The new course,
great golf course.
I love it. I played it, and I really enjoy it. Of the new courses, Kings Barnes, other than the 18th hole, Kings Barnes has old soul in it. I think they've done a great job, and I love playing Kings Barnes as well.
Yeah, 100% agree. Well, with that note, we're going to wrap it up for this week. Just a reminder, everybody, make sure you follow us, like us, and listen to us. Tell all your friends and tell your friends' friends to jump on board
to
the good
join
ship,
our
Tough
community.
Lies. Join our community. Yeah, we're having a great time. It is at Tough Lies Pod on X. It is at Tough Lies Podcast on Instagram, and Tough Lies Podcast.transistor.fm on the interwebs for everybody. So give us a like, a listen, tell your friends, and we're very much looking forward to more episodes. Thanks again, Richard, for another great week. I can't wait to talk again next week.
Always a pleasure, Colin. Thank you so much.
Join us next week on the Golfers Podcast with Richard Zokol and Colin McDougall.